This is the Beyond the Prophy podcast, the podcast that empowers you and inspires you to seek career excellence while pursuing your passion. And I'm your host, Jasmine Haley.
Welcome to the Beyond the Prophy podcast. I'm excited to welcome our guest today, Jahn. She is a leader within our profession that has made some incredible strides in the corporate world, especially with her run with Waterpik. And so I definitely think that you listeners today that are looking for that career satisfaction will definitely feel empowered and inspired after our conversation today. So welcome, Carol.
Well, thank you, Jasmine. It's great to talk with you.
Yeah, it's awesome. And when you actually said that you would be interested, I'm like, what? Oh my gosh.
And I said, she's interviewed a lot of people, but she's never asked me before. I hope it was okay that I just put myself forward.
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, a lot of the people I've interviewed, it's just like we happen to be corresponding, and I'm like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, would you be on the podcast? I've actually have gotten so busy that I can't seek. It's so much easier for them to just send, just put yourself on the schedule.
That's great. Wow, that's fantastic.
It makes it so much easier. Definitely makes it so much easier. But I think you are the first person so far that I've had that is still currently in corporate dentistry. Okay. And there's so many hygienists out there that want to get into corporate dentistry and are just they don't really have a clue. And what I love about what you currently are doing with Waterpik, you also know the other end. You know the end of management, but you also know the other end of interviewing hygienists. So right. I think that's definitely something that we're going to dive in today to help the hygienist who's looking to go further out and think beyond the prophy and consider corporate as a realm for them to actually get into. So
great. I think there's a lot of opportunities out there.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes we don't see them, at all because we're consumed. Right.
Connections are everything and networking is everything. That's sometimes those things come up and it really does come down to who you know, that they're not even advertised in many cases.
That is so true. That is so true. So tell me how you got to where you are.
Okay. Well, I started just like everyone else as a clinician, and I loved it. Sometimes people will say to me, oh, did you not like clinical practice? And really nothing could be farther from the truth. I loved my patients. I loved helping them. But I also knew as I sort of progressed through that part of my career, I was a clinician for 14 years, 12 years in a general practice and 10 years in perio, kind of going back and forth between those two offices, that there was just more I wanted to do. And I did more through my professional association. I was the president of the Illinois Dental Hygienists Association back in the 90s. And I can't emphasize enough how much you can learn and gain skills as well as connections, both with other hygienists as well as corporate people when you get involved in your professional association. So that's a great entry point for people. And that, certainly was my kicking off point. Mm-hmm. And then trying to figure out, what am I going to do next? And I knew I wanted something more. And I took about a year to figure out what that was. And I knew part of it was going to be getting a master's degree, but I had, I think and something we talk about in corporate is what's your reason for being? And so I think when you're trying to make that journey, and it's hard to know because a lot of times we have a lot of interest, we have a lot of passion. Where do I go? A lot of things seem interesting. So I think you want to decide what's your reason for being. And I can tell you that 21 years later, a reason for being for me is whether I'm in corporate, I'm still helping patients. When I give a continuing education course, I feel as though if I'm helping a hygienist, I'm helping them help a patient. I feel very honored to be able to represent a product that I know helps patients. So I think when you can figure that out, and that's by no means an easy task, it takes a lot of reflection. It takes a lot of digging deep into knowing what drives your passion and brings you joy. but that will make the road ahead of you narrow it, I guess, to where you want to go a little bit. But I'm also, I hate to say narrow, because I'm also a big believer in looking at your opportunities and considering things. So long story short, I started down a master's program. What I thought was going to happen was, I'm going to work in private practice a few days a week, and I want to give continuing education. I was getting a degree in continuing education and training. Mm-hmm. Once you get into a grad program, your world opens up to more possibilities. But what also happened for me was that I saw an ad for Waterpik. They were looking for someone to be an educational representative in the Midwest and call on schools and give presentations. Mm-hmm. I applied. I thought, I won't get this. I only have a year. I don't even have my master's degree. And it was a master's preferred, but I got it. And I've progressed, obviously. I think that in many ways I have been fortunate enough to fine-tune the position to my strengths and to things that I like to do. But I'm also, this is just something that's not even work for me. It's mm-hmm. Educating people, working with other industry leaders, still my connection to ADHA. All of those things are so meaningful to me. And helping somebody else get on a path and get there also, really fulfills me as well.
Yes, absolutely. I love the fact that you mentioned right off the jump is being involved with your professional organization. I definitely feel that the courage that I received have been through the connections I've made through that. People seeing my potential, being willing to push me forward. And that's usually the first, your first basis of meeting those influencers within your state who are there to kind of push you to reach that level. And then, of course, if you get involved on the board, you're going to get leadership training and skills that are going to just benefit you for years to come.
Right. Transferable.
Yes.
I think sometimes people have skills, but they're not really, they're not aware of the skills that they have. And so then they sort of discover them when they're doing something for their association. And not only once you discover it, you build on it. And one of the things I know ADHA has done this year that I've been fortunate to be a part of with Tammy Filipiak is your strengths. And I think you just did Strengths Finder, right?
So I did it in my graduate program at the very beginning in 2016. I never had heard of it. Now I did the DISC assessment with Unleashing Your Potential, but I didn't do the Strengths Finder that made my mouth was, it was wide open. Like, what? It's amazing.
You weren't surprised though, were you?
I was surprised at how well it worked.
Oh, okay, good. Because it shouldn't be a surprise. You should go, yeah, you're right.
Yes.
That is me.
Yes.
I got introduced to a book called Now Go Discover Your Strengths. And as I read it, I'm like, well, I guess I need to find out what those are. It was about how to implement them. And I did it. And it was about 10 years ago. And then I just did it again. And the funny thing was, I think there were 3 that stayed the same and 3 that changed. Although the interesting thing, like you had one that was restorative. And this time I had analytical and I'd had restorative before. In so many ways, there's a lot of similarities there. Mm-hmm. But it's great to see it, anytime we enhance also our self-awareness, that helps us in so many ways to be able to find our real potential, I think. And I think that's, I also tell people, I do a little bit of this in one of the courses I give. Mm-hmm. Nobody's ever said they were sorry they found out their strengths. And in a world where everybody would rather knock you down, it's so great to do something like Strength Finder and building on our strengths really what contributes to our success.
Absolutely. Oh man, when I read that, the very first one that showed for me was Achiever. Mm-hmm. And I just could not understand why I was never satisfied. It's like when I would achieve something and then I'm like, oh, okay, this is great. I would be happy for a short period of time. And then I'm like, okay, what's the next thing? And that book, because you get the book, you purchase the book, and then of course you take the assessment. Just really helped me to appreciate, okay, this is a strength of mine, but here's where it could be something that can hinder you.
Exactly. I have achiever as well, so I get it, as do most people who are on the ADHA board have achiever. We were laughing about that. There were certain things that, really, really resonated. Learner, I think one of it said, you wouldn't just buy one book on something, you'd buy 3. And I'm like, do they know me? Have they looked at my Kindle? How do they know that?
Absolutely. I mean, and so I used to actually feel sort of, I guess, embarrassed by that. I remember in junior high school in 6th grade, I wound up getting all these awards. They kept calling my name over and over and over again. And then, of course, in middle school, they're like, "Ugh, who does she think she is?" And I would feel shameful because I mean, on the inside, I felt good about getting it. That's what I wanted, but I was ashamed of it. And then after reading that, and at phones, they make you choose animal, not an animal, but a symbol. I chose a symbol, not an animal. To choose a symbol that represents all of those 5 strengths. Cool. It finally came, together where I felt proud of what makes me me.
Right. I think that they were talking about this last night in the Olympics, watching all these female athletes, and, we've got some amazing women at the Olympics, and showing our pride and our strength and what we can do. And, I grew up when Title IX was just starting. So, achieving for women in sports was new, but even I think there was still, I graduated from high school in 1978, and I grew up in a more rural community, although talking to some of my friends who are here said, not that much different. There was still a little bit of, well, you're a girl, you're going to be a nurse or a hygienist or a teacher. And fortunately, I did pursue my degree at the University of Iowa and to graduate with a bachelor's degree. And so I'm glad when I went to hygiene that's the path I chose for me. It made things a little bit easier than, when I was getting a master's. But I think that there was, we've all kind of come of age. And it's just so exciting for me to see women as athletes, women taking their own, becoming leaders, becoming CEOs. It's great.
Oh, it just makes me jump for joy.
Yes.
Because I have 2 little girls. And,
yes.
Just a week or 2 ago, I was at my oldest school, and she was chosen to do like a video recording for the public school system on the STEM program that they have there. It's actually STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. But most people don't know what that means, so I say STEM. And it was just incredible seeing her and how confident she is. I mean, these young women that are coming up are going to be so amazing because of all of the strides that women are doing now to open the way for them. And you even see that in our profession.
I agree.
It's evolving extremely quickly.
I think that a lot of the Beyond the Prophy opportunities, we don't even know yet. Yes. And I think that some of them will include Prophy, and they'll include, I truly believe we will. There's a tsunami that's going to come, and mid-level or advanced practitioner, or however we want to define it, is going to come. We have an access to care issue. Mm-hmm. We have issues in terms of affordability with dental care, but there's so many things. And I'm sure you read the book Teeth by Mariotto. Yes. And more people are understanding the importance of oral care, and we can be in the driver's seat. And I think it's going to go slow at the beginning, but then I think you'll hit that tipping point where all of a sudden, you see many states, and those are going to create so many great opportunities for hygiene. I think that's where the expansion is going to come. I know there's a lot of struggles in private practice, and I believe me, I get all of them right now, but I think they're going to come still being able to do direct patient care, but in a much broader sense, and maybe I'd use the word autonomy.
Yes. Listeners, if you have not read Teeth, you need to read that. You need to understand the evolution of the dental infrastructure that we have now. And it's definitely going to make you feel empowered about the role that we could possibly have. There's so many, unfortunately, and I used to be one of them, hygienists that are completely dissatisfied. And sometimes you need that reminder and push to why we're here. Our role was established for a reason. It's what I emphasize to students when I'm talking about public health. We're more than tooth cleaners. We need to focus on that prevention and become knowledgeable about products like Waterpik and other things out there that are used to really bring health to patients and keep that at the forefront. Don't get caught up in all these other things that are negative about our profession. Be a change agent and really focus on what you could do in making a difference.
There's people doing amazing things right now, and I agree. And it's tougher than it was when I was in private practice, or at least I kind of believe that right now. And so I think that we have to use that to look at that as, it's an obstacle, but where are the opportunities? And the opportunities are there. And I think when we want to think about strengths and things to build on, I'm also going to throw this out, is understand and know your standards of care. ADHA's got their clinical standards for dental hygiene practice. And I see people on Facebook asking, can I do this or can I do that? And it's like, hey, there's this great resource out there for you that I think can help us. I think they drive confidence. And that's something else I sort of want to talk about is confidence. I think people want to do things. They know they want to do things, and we lack confidence for a lot of reasons. You haven't, when anytime we've never done something, we're not, it's hard to feel confident about it. But nobody feels confident the first time they take that step.
Absolutely.
It's normal to be scared, and it's okay.
Absolutely. I was just talking with someone today about what my website looked like when I first started. And the first video I posted, especially for Mom Janice, it was a hot mess. But I kept going. I kept making action. And yes, you have to first start with you, because honestly, you really cannot go to any opportunity, whether it's something that's already established through a company, through a corporate company, or creating your own opportunity. You can't be of service to anyone if you don't work on yourself first.
Absolutely. You're the only person you have control over.
Yes, absolutely. And you're going to get challenges that come your way. And, how are you going to persevere through that? Are you going to use it as a block for you to really achieving whatever it is that you're, setting out to achieve, or are you going to use it to grow?
To grow, exactly. What can we, anytime we can learn from what we've done, and mistakes are normal. I always say this, one of my courses is, when you're in dental hygiene school, there's one way or the highway. And I think there's a reason for that. Yeah. You can't have 40 people doing something 40 different ways. But when you get into private practice, there are other ways. And so I think it's really hard, whether you're the hygienist or the dentist, we've been educated to think it's just one way. And it's very hard to be flexible. But the reality is flexibility and that ability to see more than one way, especially with patients, is key, I think, to some long-term satisfaction. But I just also think that knowing you make mistakes, we all make mistakes, for instance, and a lot of times it's not something earth-shattering, but it's just silly stuff. Like a couple weeks ago, I was trying to book someone for an interview, and I just come back from the Yankee dental meeting, so I know I was tired, which is not always not a good time when you're doing stuff, right?
Right.
And so I put out the dates, and I knew it was February, and I had the numerical days right, but I said January instead of February, right? Didn't even catch it. Sent it out. And she came back, and it was a little bit of a snarky reply back, which I don't really recommend when you're trying to schedule an interview. But I'm like, wait, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I put the wrong dates in, and it all worked out. But when somebody, especially if you make a mistake and somebody's a little snarky, sometimes there's a real tendency to be snarky back.
Yes.
And the reality is, if we can accept that, hey, it was a mistake, it was no big deal, you corrected it, you apologize, and you go forward, then it allows us to be more forgiving of other people when they make mistakes. If we can be forgiving of ourselves, but also understanding, like, how did that happen? Yeah, you were really tired on Monday when you came back from the meeting, and that's when things like that happen. But I just think, unless it's, someone lost a limb, most mistakes are correctable and fixable, and they're not the end of the world.
Oh, and you know what? When people respond to things that were not planned in a gracious manner,
right?
It just, that person responding in that way, you'll never forget that.
Right.
I've had it where I scheduled a conference call with a corporate entity, and I don't recommend this to listeners, but I had a conference call and I completely blew it. I missed it. And I had it on my calendar, but it did not send, it wasn't on notification. And I apologized profusely, and the corporate entity was very understanding. Yeah. They didn't hold it against me.
They've done the same thing. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
They have, or I work in all these different time zones, and I'm always like, oh my God, do I have the time zone right?
Exactly. Well, what? This is a great segue because, you started in corporate as a education rep. And so now tell the listeners exactly what your current role is. And the reason why I want to share that is because now you're on the other end where you're interviewing people. And I kind of want to talk about, you've written an article that I saw on LinkedIn about things not to do.
Right. Because it's always, so what I do now is I'm the director of professional relations and education. So one of the things that stayed consistent through over time is I still give continuing education courses. And I have to say that I still love that. I mean, I still absolutely love that. And when I give one, it's like, you may be sitting there thinking, okay, she's talked for 3 hours. Is she done? But for me, it seemed like 3 minutes.
Right.
So I still love that. I love the writing. I still do that. And, but I also work with other key opinion leaders trying to get things, I'm kind of that voice on educational pieces within, our team. And 5 years ago, we started a lunch and learn program. We started with a friend of mine was kind of testing them out here, and Brianna Taylor, who works at Waterpick. Mm-hmm. And we kind of grew this program, and we officially started it. We actually went to some people we knew, and now we have a nationwide team, and we have people in Canada. And so I do the educational content for it, but I also do the initial interviewing since I'm the hygienist, and I have a pretty good sense. And it's so many times, there are times I've interviewed people and I think, you probably, I know you want this, but you kind of shot yourself in the foot sometimes. And I think that we don't think about the interview process starts the minute you send someone a resume, Yes. And I've gotten emails where it's like somebody was text messaging me, or they sent me their resume and cover letter, but they didn't take 5 minutes to change their cover letter to applying for a lunch and learn. It was still for clinical practice. And then what people don't often realize when you do that is I'm thinking, okay, so if this person's contacting an office for a lunch and learn, are they going to, send them an email like they're texting? Are they not going to catch that? Are they going to have some attention to detail? Are they going to want to make it a whole package. And so you start looking at those things from the very beginning. And I think it's a lack of experience. They've not done it before. Sometimes it's like excitement. I just want to get this out as fast as I can, to beat everybody else to the draw. And sometimes it would be better to maybe pause a little bit, look at it. Some of the best things, the best letters or emails I get is when I posted what we're looking for and someone writes me and says, "Dear Carol, I saw this. I have these days. I love your product. I've done this with it. I've practiced blah, blah, blah." And they write me this nice, very passionate piece that matches up with what I'm looking for. And I'm like, bingo, great. They really, that pops up on your radar screen.
Right. Absolutely. It just reminds me of, I had to find a hygienist to cover me for my maternity leave. Now, one of the classes that I have taught for 4 years was resume writing. So I'm very particular about that. I've always been, since I was taught that way when I went to school. It was everything, your resume and your cover letter. But this young woman came in and had on shorts. And they weren't like shorts that cut off at the knees. These are the ones, Dukes. They were some Daisy Dukes, okay? They're called something else too, but we won't say. She had flip-flops. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, which is not an issue. And then she had almost like a revealing type of top. Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm not looking at your chest, but it's a distraction. And then her resume and cover letter had so many typos. Was not in chronological order. And the first thing I said to her was, this was hard for me because I didn't want to offend her. Right. And I said, can I give you some pointers for your resume? I just could not imagine sending her back out to go like that to the next office. And it wasn't welcome, and I know it was unsolicited advice, and I know, we always want to be perfect as hygienists, but if someone is trying to help you or show to you a way to be more, I don't know a good word for it, Carol. I really don't.
It's your professional presence.
Yes, exactly. And they've lost sight of that. And it's very, very valuable. It's almost like if you present yourself that way, you don't value your profession.
Right. I think we also have to think about our social media presence.
Oh, yes.
I had a director recommend someone, and she had graduated 2 or 3 years ago, and pulled it up on Facebook and saw some of the pictures, and I just couldn't do it. And so I knew the director, and I said, "I'm sure you think this is a really, you thought a lot of this person to recommend her. Maybe you would be able to talk with her about her Facebook page." Mm-hmm. And she's like, "Oh, you don't know how many times we talk about this." And I go, "I know, but nobody thinks anybody's going to look at it." But it wasn't welcome, because then she sent me an email like, "Well, this is my private life." And it's like, yeah, but once it goes on Facebook, it's not private.
Exactly.
And I think about those things on the pages, sometimes I see people ask a question and people can be very mean. Mm-hmm. when responding, and it's like, that everyone sees that. What if that person or a person who sees that, you're going in and doing an interview and that person remembers you from your office? It's your professional presence, your integrity, who you are the things that, we should guard. And we have control over that. We have control how we respond on things like that. Other times we don't. But I think that that's something that I feel old sometimes when I say that.
Trust me, I felt old the other day when I still wear a slip. Okay.
I just bought one at Target a couple of months ago for a dress that clung to my tights.
My mom was an older mom, and so there were certain things like you had to wear a slip and a girdle, like nothing showing everything. But I got rid of the starch, so that's a good progress right there.
I could live without my Spanx, but I know, and
yeah, but I love the points that you bring out. You've actually shared some really valuable valuable pearls, the first thing that really stands out is having transferable skills, making sure you have a good professional presence, and really understanding your strengths. And I think when you couple those pearls and really focus on that, there's no way that when opportunities arise, you won't flourish.
I agree. People come to the booth. So, I mean, I can think of someone I use for lunch and learns, and she came to our booth. This is at an RDH Under One Roof meeting, actually. And she was asking some things about maybe being in sales. No, we don't have it. And then I'm thinking, well, actually, I was looking for somebody for trade shows, maybe not even lunch and learns. And she starts to walk away, and I'm like, wait, come back. Because she had such presence, and she was so well spoken, and she was poised, and it was, and I said, I might have something. I go, maybe you should come to dinner with us and decide if you like us.
Yeah, I mean, just like that, opportunities happen. Yes.
Right. And you want it. You're like,
Yes, you have to and I'm going to get to the last final. We can talk longer than 30 minutes, Carol. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
But that is so true. It drives me crazy when you go to your professional organization meetings, whether you're at RDH Under One Roof or ADHA annual conference. Yes, we're having a good time, but don't get too crazy.
Yeah. Exactly.
People are watching you. Someone did something completely absurd to one of my good friends, Christy, when we were there for Mom Genist, and I just could not believe that they allowed themselves to get that wild at a professional event. So
I know.
I love it. I love that you mentioned it. Okay, here are my two final questions.
Okay.
What was the last book that you read?
The last book that I read, actually, I'm going to talk about a book that I started for my New Year's resolution that, and I'm not always good every day. Like the other day, I'm like, you went 4 days. So it's called Take Your Soul to Work, SOUL. And it is some daily meditations on leadership. And I'll be honest, there is a little bit of a religious spiritual, but not heavy, but just a larger being, which, my comfort level is just fine on that, but maybe not everybody else's. But it takes maybe less than 5 minutes to read them each day. And it will give you a question at the end and about it. But it can be on, things like presence. It could be on things like confidence. It could be on one just topic that relates. I might say it's as much about character as leadership. And so I've committed. I did it a few years ago, and I was trying to think about something, and I had to recommit it, right? Today's Ash Wednesday, recommit to that for Lent. But so I read those things, and they always give me a little bit of insight. They always make me think about something I'm doing, or how could I do something better, or what do I bring to the table. And so that's where I'm working on right now.
I love it. A lot of where I am today is all about mindset. I do guided meditation. I have to keep that positivity flowing through me. And I love the fact that they mention that, because everything's aligned. Everything's aligned. If you don't have the personal in alignment, it's going to affect you professionally. That's why I love the title of that book. Okay. Last question. What was the best career advice you've ever received?
The best career advice I ever received. Well, I was looking for my master's degree, and I got really confused, and do I get an MBA? Do I get this? What do I do? And I ended up, someone referred me to someone who was at a college near where I live. And it turned out that Laurel her first career was a dental hygienist. How about that? And taught at Indiana and taught at Michigan, which, of course, just wowed me right there. But she had gone on into organizational development, and she really, don't rush it. think about it. And I ended up talking to her a couple of more times about what I wanted. And I felt like she really understood, and she guided me to a program that was really, really right for me. Mm-hmm. And so that was great career advice. And the funny thing was that she ended up coming and teaching in that program about a year later. And we stayed in contact for a while. I know we haven't been for a while, but so that was, that was great. And I think it's about taking your time, figuring out what you want, more than anything. Although I'm going to throw this in there on a left turn, a lot of things that have happened to me in my career, I would have said I always say life doesn't happen on your schedule.
Amen.
And sometimes we think like we're waiting and waiting. Is it ever going to happen? But I've had things like when I was going to be president in Illinois, I wasn't going to be president in Illinois. I was going to run for treasurer again, and they needed a president. And I thought, I would be finishing my degree before I got a corporate job. But no, I was a year into it. And so I think it's understanding and being ready.
Yes.
Is that preparation, but then you'll know when those opportunities come to jump on them and don't delay them. You can learn along the way.
Yes. There's a thing that Oprah says. She says, there's a quote, I don't know who it comes from, but she says, there's no such thing as luck. It's preparation that meets opportunity.
That's exactly the one I was thinking of.
Yes.
Exactly. Right.
Yes. It's powerful. It is so powerful. And sometimes you've got to create that opportunity.
Yes, you do. Absolutely.
Oh man, this was such a great conversation. I loved it. So how can people find out about your company, which we already know who Waterpik is, but if they want to get in contact with you or find out more about Waterpik, how can they do so?
They can email me.
Awesome.
Yeah. And my email is just like my name, C, then JAHN @waterpik.com. So
awesome.
Absolutely. Come to see me at the Chicago Midwinter Meeting. I'll be at ADHA in Columbus. I'll be at RDH Under One Roof.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, I'll be where else? I'm around.
Yeah, you certainly are. I've seen you every time, working that booth hard. So it's always busy. It's always busy.
We love that. So,
well, thank you again, and I really appreciate the time you took to have this conversation. It was really awesome.
It was. I appreciate it very much.